Okay, for today, we're reviewing for the big exponentials test. And on this one, I'd say the easy part is it's definitely growth. Because look, you're multiplying by something bigger than 1. If it was less than 1 in there, like 1 minus something, that would have been decay. But this was growth. Raise your hand if you knew it was growth. Good. Very common mistake on the percent is to say 2%. It's not. What is it? 20%. If you don't know how to do those yet, get used to moving the decimal exactly 2 spots over. 20%. Okay? All right, next one is starting value. That's this number in the front. It's just 5. All right, raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, awesome. So, weirder one, just real quick. What if I have 1 in the front and I do 1 minus 0.002 to the x? My question is growth or decay and percent of the growth. And I just told you how to do it if you listened. And the third part is starting value. Now, if some kid at lunchtime told you what all the questions on the test were, that would be cheating. But me right now telling you all the things you have to know for the test, that's not cheating. So if I were you, I'd write them down just as much as you're getting really good inside info about what the test is like tomorrow. So please write these down and then you'll be able to look back at them right before the test. Remind yourself how to do this stuff. All right, this one was decay. If this was a plus, it would have been growth, but it's decay because it's going down. What percent is 0.002? I told you, move. I just drew like this, and I said move it over 2 spots. That is 0.2%. Do you get that's less than 1%? It's 0.2%, not 2%. Point goes right there. You move the decimal over 2 spots. 0.2%. Who actually figured that one out? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, good. Starting value is 1. This even if it's a 1, whatever's in front, 1. That's the start. Any questions? All right. Then, here's a typical graphing question that's definitely as easy as it could possibly be. That is an exponential. Find me 3 exact points and the asymptote. If I were you, I would start with the asymptote. If you really know how to do this, you should know where the asymptote is for that. You should be able to know, oh, that's a growth one. I know what the growth ones look like. I know where the asymptote is. If you don't, you better pay attention. Okay, did you know the growth kind of looks like this and the asymptote has to be there? If you didn't know that, you should take notes on that. That's where the asymptote starts. Now, you can't just put in a swooping line. You got to actually have real points. So you're going to pick 3 spots. And the asymptote's at 0. By the way, if they asked for the equation of it, you'd say this is the x-axis, but its equation is kind of counterintuitive, is y equals 0. That's the asymptote's equation. All right. Now some points. Sam Lowe, give me a number to put in for x.
0.
Good call. Because anything to the 0 is
1.
good. So 0, 1. All right. Dice of destiny. Who should I call upon? Row 5. Last person. Natalia, that's you. Give me a number to put in for x right here, and I'll put it there. 1. And then what do you get when you put in 1? Good. Give me one more, Natalia. 2. And if I put a 2 here, it's 3 squared is 9. So 0, 1. 1, 3. And 3, 9. If I'm going to keep my scale right, I should make the graph a little taller. And now I can draw a line that goes through those 3 important points. Any questions on that one? That one should have been pretty easy. Okay, now here's the harder kind. 1/2 to the x plus 2. At first, what I would recommend is that you sketch what you know it kind of looks like. Would you agree this is a decay, so it kind of looks like that? But where does it get moved? Up 2. So do you get that? Now you know where the asymptote is? I do. All right, that's how I'd start. It was a little sketch. And then I go get exact points. There's still a few kids that don't know how to find these exact points. That's gonna definitely toast your test. You cannot get an A if you don't know how to find points. You pick any number you want, but on a fraction like this, you better not just use 1, 2, and 3. Because you'll have to be doing like 1/2 to the third, and that's gonna be some weird decimal. It's gonna be really hard to graph that. 1's fine. Put in 1 and you get 1/2 to the 1 is 1/2 plus 2 is 2.5. But the rest of those are going to get weird. So I would definitely do power of 0. You remember that's like a super easy one, right? And then -1. If you forgot what the -1 power does, you got to remember that. It doesn't make it negative. The -1 power does not make it negative. It does something else. Bennett, tell me some numbers you stuck in.
0.
And what'd you get when you stuck in 0?
3.
Nice. At first I thought it was going to be 2. But when you put in 0 here, you get 1 for this. Plus 2 is 3. Okay, good. And then how about the -1? Did you do that yet?
Yeah.
When you put in -1 power, what happens to this?
It flips.
It flips and becomes 2 plus 2 is 4. Raise your hand if you had those 3 points. Nice. Any questions? If you don't get that last one, a -1 power is the reciprocal of this. It makes it flip over to 2. All right. And then the asymptote, we checked ahead of time. We knew the asymptote got moved up 2, so you should have known that there was a dotted line right there. And then my graph gets really close to that dotted line. So where are these points? Over 1 up 2.5 is like here-ish. Over 0 up 3 is like there-ish. And -1 comma 4 is like there-ish. And there's a little slight curve to that. So there we go. We good on the graphing? All right. Next kind of related. Can you make these bases be the same? Could you make it so they both have the same base? Because if you can, then you can set the exponents equal. Once you get the bases the same, you can just cross out the bases, and it'll be only about the exponents. Now, really, this will sort out the kids who know, do you know how to get that to flip over? Do you understand that, really? Because if you do, then they'll have a base of 2. They'll both have a base of 2. Henry, another little thing that people sometimes don't do is they don't put a power here. What power should they put here?
1.
Yeah. Because then you have exponents on both sides. And you'll be able, once the bases are the same, you'll be able to set the exponents equal. All right. I'm not going to beat around the bush. This one, either you knew that this was 2 to the -1 or you didn't. And this one, of course, is already 2. And then the bases are the same. Did you know this fact, that 1/2 is 2 to the -1? You got to get that one down. A -1 power means it flips over. Now I just got to copy this down, and I have an x plus 1 here. Okay. They both have a base of 2, right? So then you get rid of the base. And what's left? This becomes critical. I guarantee you somebody said negative 1x plus 1. Nope. Why not? Negative 1 times the x and negative 1 is times by the 1. It's a distribute thing. See? That times that. Ooh, I'll use a different color. That times that and that times that. That makes that negative 1. Now it's right. Don't let that catch you. There's a parenthesis wall right there. And the parenthesis wall tells you got to distribute into that. All right, now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I get negative x equals 2. And I'm surprised how many kids don't know this. This morning, somebody was asking me what to do. Do you know what to do? Gabe, you know what to do? Divide by what? Negative 1. There you go. Or multiply by negative 1. Either way. I know some of you are out there not knowing that. There's your final answer. Another way to say it, if you just look at the red here, is the opposite of x is 2. What's regular x? Must be the opposite of that. Opposite of 2. Negative 2. All right. That was tough. Honest. How many of you had it before I said it? All right, that was less than half. So we're going to try one again like that. Question. Okay, let's do another one that's like that. I'll leave it on the board if you want to look at it. 1/4 to the x equals 16 to the 3x. Now, this is a especially tricky kind because you can't make them have the same base with just one swap. Like, you can't just go, ooh, I swapped this around and now they have the same base. No, you can't. But you can do 2 swaps. First thing I would do is I would flip that over and I would make it 4 to the negative 1 because that's the same thing as 1/4. Those of you that don't get that, I'd write this down. 1/4 is 4 to the negative 1. You need to know that. Any fraction like this, you need to know its other number that's like it, which is going to be to the negative 1 power. Like 1/9. That's 9 to the negative 1, etc. Okay, so back to this. Why did I just do what I just did? Because now it's closer. All this was copying down. This was just copying down. The only thing I did was change 1/4 to 4 to the negative 1. Now, if they gave you that problem, it would have been way easier. Can't you make them have the same base now? Pretty easy. What base would you want it to be? 4. So that means you better change that into a 4. Well, a 16 isn't a 4, but it's a 4 squared. And the only thing I really did there is this blue stuff. 16 is 4 squared. Now they got the same base. Cool. If they got the same base, you can get rid of the base. And then it's negative x equals, that's times, by the way, in case you forgot. When it's a power and another power, they multiply. So that's going to be 6x. I know this one freaks a lot of people out. Question, comment.
Didn't you 1/4 to the negative 2 power?
You are correct. You could have done it all at once, but I don't think many people could have done that. But make sure your answer comes out exactly right at the end. So if you did that, tell me if you get the same thing at the end. So let's say take it from here. I now have crossed off my bases, and I just took that and that. Okay, and now I get it. It's weird. There's x's on both sides. You got to get it so there's x's only on one side. you could either subtract 6x, or I think smarter, add x. And people don't like that because there's nothing on that one side. But there's a 0 there. It's just 0. And again, how do you solve that? Well, get the x alone. How do you get rid of the 7? Okay, subtract 7. Would that make any sense at all? Times 7 gets taken care of by subtract 7? No, you don't subtract 7. What do you do here? Divide. And just because it's a 0 in there, don't freak out. What's 0 divided by 7? If you have 0 cookies and you have 7 people, 0 cookies divided amongst 7 people would be 0. You each get 0. It would be 7 over 0 you should be worried about. If it was 7 over 0, that would be no solution. But this is just 0. Okay, those are the toughest ones. So I think I should just do one more really quick. This will be an easy one if you know how to do these. 1/2 to the x equals 2 to the negative 2. This time I want to slowly ease you into working with that partner next to you. So, in a moment, you're going to be taking a quiz together. And so I want these 2 rows. We're going to keep it simple. The wall row, you stay where you are. Row number 2 here, slide all the way over until you're 6 inches apart from the person next to you. Would you stand up? I'm going to show you. That's there. Okay, go ahead. Slide over next to the person next to you. These 2 rows, slide over next to each other. You guys scrunch together. Would you stand up? Okay. Work through this problem with them. Come on, talk to each other. Don't be shy.
So I did half to -1, and I did it in like this parentheses, so like 2 -1 parentheses x equals 2 to the -2, and then cross those off to be -1 -2.
Foda, could you slide over a little bit? You're the one person that's not all the way slid over. All right. This was the logical move. How many of you knew that that should be 2 to the -1? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, good. Now that the bases are the same. Oh, wait, I'm going to make this blue. The only thing I did was the blue part. You got to know those. They're going to help you in like 3 spots on the test, I think. All right, so then bases are the same. Gone. -x equals -2. Multiply both sides by -1 or divide both sides by -1. Either way works. X equals 2. Raise your hand if you had 2. Okay, awesome. One last thing to talk about. What if the problem is a word problem and it says continuously? What do you know you have to have as the formula? Marcel, you remember that? Yes, it's got to have E in it. And there's this formula on the top of your test. And so you go, oh, it must be that one. Everybody take a second and see if you can do this one. You got $5,000. And it's continuously compounding at 10% rate for 8 years. 5,000, 10% rate, 8 years. You can either use the E button or who's got it memorized? E is what? 2.718. Very good. It's on the board here if you want. 2.718. Now take a second, type it in, and I would like bet money that one of the 2 of you types it in wrong. Hint, use parentheses in key places. There aren't any parentheses in the problem. You're right, but you should know what part needs a parenthesis. Here's the one that's most important. I think that's the most important so that you don't keep those together. And then the other most important one is this, because what I'm afraid is some kid's going to type P times E and then do that first. You can't do that. Powers are supposed to be first. So if you don't have a parenthesis here, I think you might get goofed up. So if you have parentheses in both places, I don't think you can screw up the calculator from there. All right. Try it. See if you and them get the same thing on the calculator. All the formulas are given.
But will we get the
2.718 is given. Okay, I'm going to just start entering it now.
They had 11,000. Oh. What did you get?
I wasn't able to write.
I used 2.718, and I got that. 11,126.78. If you're really close to that, and you use the E button, would you please tell me what the E button gave you? Yes.
I got 11,127.70 cents.
Can anybody verify that number? A lot of people nodding. Good. You see how the difference is only 8 cents? Because 2.718 and the button are really close. The button just goes on further after 2.718. E goes forever. Your calculator just has memorized more digits than I'm going to make you memorize. 2.718. All right. Good. Now, I just want to remind you, this one's pre-set up. 11,000 times 1 plus 0.07 over 12 to the 12 times 10. I want you and your partner to figure out, the starting amount's right here, and it's so easy, I'm just not going to ask you to like, where's the starting amount? Duh, it's there. The question that's harder is, what is this officially called? And what's this and this officially called? I'm going to call this A. What's B? And what is C, which is this part? What are they? A, B, and C. Talk to your partner about what A, B, and C are.
I know B and C are monthly.
B is annually, A is the rate, and C is the use.
Yes.
B is not the rate.
Well, A is the rate. B and 10 days. C
It's like every 10 days over the next 12 years.
I love the fish.
It's like something like
Use the word monthly when you're talking about it.
10 months.
Just 10 amount of years.
years.
Wait,
I think.
12 months and 10 years. So everyone's just doing it. So it has like 12 years.
Okay, so C, no, B is like,
All right. That 12 is there for a reason. It's because this is compounded 12 times a year. And I know, I heard even somebody say, why don't you just times these and make it 120, so it's just 120 months. But the problem is, this is different than compounding it only once a year. Compounding it 12 times a year means the bank stops once a month and refigures out your interest and gives you money. If you do it annually, this would not have been the same. Annually would have been 11,000 and then 1 plus 0.07 still, but it wouldn't have had a 12 on the bottom. And then it would have been for 10 years up here. What's the difference between these two? This one, it just does it once a year. It gives you 7%, but only once. Like at the end of the year, ploinkly drop in 7%. This one stops and gives you interest every month. Do you get the difference? It's compounded more. They're very similar to each other. All right, now with all of that prep, your next mission is to take that worksheet